Hello, District 38. This is Dany Lacy, the co-conference chair once again. And I am here today with our comedian and DJ, Bob Marsdale. Hello, Bob.
Hi, Danielle. Hi, everybody.
We are really excited to have not only comedians at this conference, but also to have a DJ for the 1920s dance party. How are you feeling about this, Bob?
Really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to meeting everybody there.
Awesome. What can you tell us about the Friday night event?
Just that we're going to be playing music. We're going to be featuring some music from The Great Gatsby, music from the 20s. Not the entire night, just kind of enough to give you a little bit of a vibe, maybe when people are coming in. Certainly, I'll have all kinds of music. I've been a DJ for a long time. So if anybody wants to do any line dances, or if you have specific requests, maybe you want some Motown, I'm always prepared to pretty much play anything. We'll kind of see how things are going, but just want to invite anybody that's there who wants to come up and approach me. If you have a favorite song, you can certainly let me know. I'd be happy to play it for you.
Nice. That's good. I want to know about your comedy career. So how did you get involved in comedy?
It's funny. I was a former radio DJ when I was in college. I worked on the old, which is now New Jersey 101.5. It was Kicks 101.5. I did more like a dance show on there, but when I was early on in college, I did some funny bits, but never really pursued comedy. Didn't really kind of know the avenue. And I entered a comedy contest. People in my family were after me to get into it. So I had never done stand-up comedy. It was a place in Medford called the Flying W, and there was maybe 25 comedians that were in it. And lo and behold, I won, much to my astonishment. And then just started. I met a couple people there at Helium Comedy Club, which is one of the big comedy clubs in Philly. Got involved there and started working with a fellow by the name of Brad Trackman. And he's a national headliner. He's been on television, ABC, all the different networks. He was on Star Search back in the day, and I guess he saw something in me, really started to help me with my writing and performing, and started going on auditions, and then just started getting more and more work. And the more people I met, the more jobs I got. So now, I work pretty frequently, which is, I'm very passionate about it, and I enjoy it. It's a fun gift to be able to make people laugh that you've never met before. So I'm really looking forward. We're gonna have a great night there.
So you're saying you weren't doing this your whole life. You weren't involved in comedy since you were younger. This came about when you got older?
Mostly I did Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners at the house when I was a kid, impersonating people. I moved on to impersonating relatives, which the people that I wasn't impersonating thought was hysterical. But like my uncles and aunts that I were doing their voices, they didn't think it was quite as funny. But that's kind of how I got started. But no, I didn't start doing this till later in life. I did. I always had a knack for voices and dialects. I've done a lot of voiceovers for commercials. Kind of how I got into this, being a DJ. But then just got into this. And I love being a DJ, but this has been something that's been a little bit different. I really enjoyed it.
Now, do you bring your humor to life as a DJ?
Sometimes it kind of depends. Like at a wedding, it's not really appropriate. I might throw something in, but it's not. It's more like if I was doing a beef and beer and you're doing like a lot of these drawings that you have to kind of MC that more. A lot of times, a guy that looks like me that wins the hair care basket. That's always kind of a funny thing that always seems to happen. So I might make a joke about that, and it's really very impromptu. It's nothing really, like in my act or whatever. It's just kind of conversing and emceeing. So I have a lot of experience emceeing different events just from that being a DJ. So the transition to comedy was a little bit easier for me than maybe somebody that had never done anything like that before.
Oh yeah, or somebody who's never even stood on stage.
Right.
That's something that we're going to be talking about on Friday night when Ann Barab comes on. She is a comedic speaker. So she's going to be talking about the difference between comedians, comedic speakers, and how to bring them together. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be an interesting twist. And then having you come on, introducing Helene Angley, and then going from there. So that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for saying yes to coming apart and being a part of this. I know it's not your typical Friday night crowd.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be fun. I think
it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great time. Now I have another question. How did you get into DJing then?
same kind of thing. I mean, I grew up in North Jersey. I used to listen to a radio station called WABC up there. It was on AM, and there was a guy that by the name of Dan Ingram, who was the big DJ when I was growing up. And I just, I could do his voice, pretty much when I was a kid, like, and just like an announcer, it was like kind of over the top, but I did an announcer voice. I always wanted to be a DJ. And then when I went to college at Fairleigh Dickinson and Teaneck. And so I auditioned for the radio station, and the program director came in, and like he was kind of wide-eyed, and he was like, he thought that I'd been doing radio for years, but I guess had this knack for voices, and I knew how to be an announcer. And like he immediately gave me a spot on the radio station. And then I wound up again, like, I was doing stuff. Then I wound up being I would host a lot of things at Fairleigh, different, like if it was bands that were coming in, like, Average White Band would come in. I'd be the guy that would bring everybody on. And then started hosting a lot of campus events and all. So that's how I became a DJ. Then I started working in clubs. I mean, back in like the 80s and 90s, like everybody can kind of be a DJ now, but there wasn't as many people. So I did a lot of the major clubs in Southern New Jersey, like the Coastline, the Hideout, Club Atlantis and Ben Salem. These were like big clubs. And then I had a live radio show on Kix 101.5 back in the early 90s. That was like a live show, like similar, I'm friends with Bob Pantano, similar to Bob Pantano's show. Bob's been a hell of a lot more successful, but I had about a 2-year run where I was more of the guy because I know how to mix and play to a dance crowd. And then they would have an MC, and we would banter once in a while, but I was really there because I knew how to engineer the music. And that's kind of, and then with my name being on the radio so much, I started my own DJ service, and people, it was like during the time when people wanted more DJs than bands.
Yeah.
And I doing people's weddings, and then that was like a whole other thing. So I kind of gravitated more towards doing the weddings than the clubs. I mean, it was, I had a young family, and the compensation was far more than working in a club. It was a lot more fun maybe working in a club with 300 or 400 people, but it just paid better to do weddings. So I kind of gravitated more towards that. So I'll still do a club every once in a while, but it's more for me. It's not really from a monetary thing. So I don't know.
Just to go backwards in time for a minute.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. There's a friend of mine that opened up a club in the Trenton area called Decades, and he, during the pandemic, I was doing these live dance shows, which I think you might have seen, but it was just, I was playing dance music on Saturday nights when nobody could go out of their house, and a lot of people were watching that. I have a lot of followers on Twitter, a lot of people on Facebook, and I started doing that. And then one of these guys I hadn't seen in years says, I'm opening up this club. It's like a retro club, and they wanted guys that would be able to play stuff from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, kind of like that was kind of my era. So I did a couple of nights for him, and then it shut down again. So they're just in the middle of reopening. So I'm like kind of on standby for him. But the comedy stuff is really kind of taken over my time on the weekends. So
good. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm going to ask you, who is the most famous voiceover you can do?
The most famous voice? Gee.
Nothing like putting you on the spot.
I don't know. Trying to think of somebody that say, I've been doing a little bit of Bill Clinton recently in my stand-up. I just started talking about him just a little bit, just a little bit, just old voice, like, Rodney Dangerfield. Oh, how you doing? He's kind of easy to do, but so a lot of that stuff.
I don't find voiceovers to be easy ever. I don't know if some people just can naturally do that and some people just can't.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like when I'm doing stand up, I actually, I'll save it for the show, but I do my daughter, I do my mom, I do, when I'm talking about, because a lot of my comedy is about life experiences, there are jokes in there, but it's more of like these funny things that happen, and it's kind of a story. So I'll bring in people's voices. I don't really like do, Robert De Niro or people, a lot of people that do that. So it's, I don't know. I think people don't expect that when I'm doing my mother's voice and my daughter's voice. It's a little bit funnier. So
When you just pop in with it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always try to do my husband's voice and he'll be like, I don't sound like that. I'm like, you totally do sound like that. He's like, no, I really don't.
You impersonate, everyone thinks they sound like that, but you kind of like, you pick up on little nuances that people do. Like, Clint, Clint was always like, with his hand, or different thing. You kind of pick up on these nuances that people do. So, and they don't even realize they're doing it. So some of my best impersonations of family members, which, unfortunately they're not famous.
And they probably are like, why did you make me look like that on stage?
Yeah.
Do you get that a lot?
Oh, my mom, when she had come to a bunch of my shows, she's like, you throw me under the bus. She had the that, but she's got a good sense of humor. Actually, I think I get my sense of humor from my mother. She was really funny. So
you're gonna put her on stage next.
yeah, no, we're gonna leave her alone.
That's awesome. Now, voiceovers is something I know that the district people would be interested in, because a lot of us who are speakers would love to break into that industry. How do you even get started in that?
Actually, I did a bunch when I was in college. I mean, it was a small radio station, but like we did like a thing, when you're UPS, what they came in and they wanted to advertise that they needed people. So I did a spot for UPS. But then I've gotten hooked up with a lot of different producers that will call me when they want something. Like when they moved I guess there's an aircraft carrier in New York. I think it's the Enterprise, USS Enterprise, and they brought one of the first space shuttles there, and it's mounted on there. So the guy that, if you go on the internet and just put, I think it's the Enterprise, so you're even gonna put my name in there, it'll come up, and it's from the beginning to the end. So I voiced that entire series, which I think the guy was going to put it on some type of like A&E network or whatever, but he did that, but they use it at their place. I did a bunch of stuff for there's stuff. I have a reel on there that was just like for Cure Auto Insurance. I did like different character voices. A lot of time, I mean, if somebody wanted to get into it, I would say maybe take a class. I worked with this guy, Steve Guerin, in New York for a little bit. And the biggest thing I learned from him was like, if you're doing a character, you kind of have to get absorbed in what, like I did it like a couple of cartoon characters. Like if you see that little blue ball for the Cure Auto.
Okay.
I didn't wind up getting the gig, but I kind of looked at that little character and came up with how would that sound. Or if I'm around and there's like a dog in the room, I might do that, messing around and saying the dog is talking, but I would give the dog some type of a voice, but like kind of visualize that, kind of getting into character. I mean, it's just another form of acting. It's just like comedy is. So, but I'm sorry.
That's pretty amazing. I look forward to looking into that even farther. That, because again, it's all connected. All of the speaking and anything on stage is connected in a way. So for everyone to be able to learn all the different pieces and parts of what they could do with their speaking careers, it's just crazy where you could go.
Yeah, I would say stand up is more of, you're kind of on the edge. If like doing a commercial, I can go on the computer and I can say, well, I don't like the way I sounded, or I said that, I can cut it and edit it or whatever. But when you're doing stand up, it's the audience is never the same. A lot of times comedians will do different bits that work, and they'll do them again. It's almost like an act. And then there'll be times where you're kind of going off. You may have some interactions with an audience member. That's a little bit harder. And so, but it's a challenge. It's a lot of fun. People say like, oh, that's a really hard one, because I don't know if you ever heard like Jerry Seinfeld, you're like a boxer in the middle of the ring. You really don't have anybody to, everything's in here. It's not, you don't have any some guys use props, but there's no props or no kind of audio visual that you're doing. It's basically just from your mind. So I think people in your organization will kind of appreciate that they've done a lot of public speaking. It's, you're kind of out there by yourself. So, but
yeah, it's very difficult. And being funny is very difficult. So inside of our clubs, there's this thing called Pathways, and inside Pathways, there's a path called Engaging Humor. And I've been in the Engaging Humor path now for months. And it's so hard. I realized that all of my speeches had like kind of like a sad tone to them, like a sad situation. And to make them funny wasn't easy. It probably just recently I finally got like my first like 4 jokes inside of a 5 to 7 minute speech.
Yeah. I just think, if you have humor, it's great to break the ice. You say have a little something funny to open up with. And I just think it puts people at ease. But it takes, just like anybody that's, going to your organization, it takes practice. It's not, some people, yeah, you can wing it, but like I'm a heck of a lot better at this than I was 10 or 12 years ago. It's a lot of practice. It's getting up, doing it. You can't be afraid to fail. Just keep going. And the more you get on stage or the more you public speak, the better you're going to get at it. You're just going to get more and more confidence as you do it. So.
Have you ever had a joke that you loved so much and you knew it had this potential to be so funny, but you just couldn't get the laugh?
Yeah. There's stuff I write and I'll be sitting here in my office and I'll say, this is brilliant. And then it's really not. So
that's the worst, isn't it? That's in writing. It's called Kill Your Darlings.
There's been stuff that I've said off the top of my head and just like, really got a huge reaction. Then maybe I might use that line again, again. So like a lot of times I'll tape which I think would be good for your people, like tape their sets, tape when they're speaking, listen to it. Hey, what did I do well? What did I not do well? But again, if I'm saying something off the top of my head, I'd want to tape it because I want to go back and say, hey, when I said this, I want to hear how it went over, and then maybe do the same joke again. Because there's always something that pops up that if you're a comedian, you need to be naturally funny. Everything can't be scripted, right? So, but but a lot of times you'll do something, you'll think it sounds great, or maybe there's another where you work on it, maybe you take a little bit out, maybe take a word or two, and then it works. The best thing is really just to kind of shorten it up as much as you can. You don't want to go on this elongated setup and then have a punchline, a minute and a half later. You want to want to have a setup and then a punchline as quickly as possible, and then move on to the next, and try to keep the laughs rolling if you can. That's really kind of the key. So now I'm saying all this, I better not mess up when it comes to guys again.
You're fine. You're fine. We all know what that's like.
Rolling, but it just stopped. You didn't do anything. So.
You're coming from a very empathetic crew.
Yes, good.
People who will be watching you are all speakers, so they'll all understand completely like anguish and pain to get to where you have to be. It's crazy. It's crazy. I actually thought about going and starting to do comedy and practicing comedy at like the local comedy clubs and like practicing that. But I'm just not there yet. That's just
well, my friend who teaches, Brad Trackman, who teaches, he's with Punchline now, which is another big club in Philly. There's a lot of people that come with no aspirations to ever do comedy, just to get over that fear of getting in front of an audience. And it's a very real fear that people has. I remember getting nervous, but then after you've done it, it's like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen to you? And again, like I was saying before, the more you do it, the more acclimated you get, the more confidence you build. So that might be an avenue. And if anybody ever wants to do that, they can reach out to me, or I'll give them Brad's name. I know a couple of people I teach in the area. If they want to do something like that, I'd be happy to pass their names on to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be great. We love the more connections, the more resources, the more growth. That's pretty much where we're all at.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. And when I get in front of you in person, I'm going to ask you to do some more voices. So not live on top of everybody, but I'm so going to ask you. So be prepared. And I really look forward to spending Friday night and Saturday night with you, and the dance party and Helene. This is going to be fabulous.
Good. Well, thank you.
Thanks you so much for taking your time.
No problem. Look forward to seeing everybody.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. This is Bob Marsdale. See you guys Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the conference.